Hello friends, I am Michael Kingswood. I write fiction for fun and profit, and this is story time. So we're doing a little something different today because it's Sunday, and like I said to you yesterday in fact, I'm starting to do some more things on here because I want to expand the channel a bit. So the other day I was putzing around on YouTube and I came across a writing channel talking about a topic that I found fun, which was the worst kinds of writers. And I was like, well, shoot, that sounds like amusing because I kind of am not a fan of any kinds of writers. And so I got on there and I liked what the guy did. And I left a couple comments and gotten to talk with some people. And I was like, well, I got to thinking to myself, hey, self, why don't you just say what you think on the video here in response to him? So that's what I'm going to do. So this is a guy named Duncan. You can see him here. He's Carl. He writes novels and makes videos about writing novels. And looks like he's got a course on how to write your first novel, which, might have been helpful 15 years ago for me, or maybe not. I don't know. But you can see he's much better at YouTube than I am. And we're going to look at his video here called The Worst Kinds of Writers, which I am down for. There's a lot of things that writers do that bug me. We'll see if it's the same. We'll see if it's the same things that bug him. So let's go with it. Hey, Carl, good to see you.
Writing is about more than just writing. It's also about how you interact with the rest of the world and the other writers you encounter within it. As long as you do some amount of writing with some degree of regularity, then in my view, you can consider yourself a writer.
This is true. There's an old saying, a writer is a person who writes, an author is a person who has written. So now what's the cutoff on that, right? How much time off can you take before you're no longer a writer? Well, I'm sure opinions will vary, but if you haven't written anything in years and years and years, can you call yourself a writer? Probably not. Anyway, so yeah, right on board with this guy here. Yeah, if you're writing, you're a writer. Cool.
As a writer, you will find yourself as part of the community of writers. And
only if you want to be honest. I kind of just do my own thing, and maybe that's why my presence is so small. But anyway, but I have done writerly things with other writers many times in the past. I've gone to writer circuits and a few conventions and a bunch of writing workshops. So yeah, he's right. It's just with a grain of salt how much you're going to do.
Among this group of people who are considered to be part of the community of writers, there exist a few who are kind of, how do I say this diplomatically, assholes.
Yep. 100%.
And it's these types of writers we're going to talk about today. These are the worst kinds of writers you'll encounter out in the world. Fitting into one of these categories has nothing to do with what you write, but rather with how you approach and interact with other writers, usually in a way that is detrimental to other practitioners of the craft. This video is a bit more tongue-in-cheek than my usual stuff is, and all of the criticism leveled here is done with all love and respect to anyone watching. I myself have fit into many of these categories at different times, so I am not immune to these sorts of things. Just keep that in mind as we go through this. All right, let's begin with the genre-phobic writer. Most writers, myself included, have preferences when it comes to the genres that we write in and that we read in. Different pen strokes for different writerly folks, as they say. And I think for most writers, this preference is just that, a preference. It does not come with any sort of hostility. I'm probably not going to be super interested in your historical age gap vampire reverse harem story because I'm not a devotee of that genre, and that's
right there with you, brother.
It's okay. Some writers, however, turn their genre...
The spawn of Satan just ran across the screen. Again, tongue-in-cheek. I'm not a fan of cats, which makes me weird, since writers seem to obsess over cats. I'm a dog guy. Anyway, going on.
preference into a means of elevating themselves and denigrating other people. You both read and write this pedestrian drivel of, I don't know, cozy mysteries. It could be literally anything. These writers denigrate and demean those who write outside of whatever genre they consider to be inferior. Whatever genre you enjoy writing in, then enjoy writing in that genre and let other people do the same. Next up, the...
Yeah, I have encountered this. It seems more... I mean, in order of what I tend to write, it goes fantasy, sci-fi, mystery, and then everything else. So it goes kind of in line with what I read. But it seems to me that the most snootiness you get tends to come from the more literary guys, the ones who have MFAs and attended way too many English classes back in the day. But yeah, there are snobs everywhere. Agreed. I don't like snobs. Onward.
Intellectual writer. For these folks, it's very important to understand that they, A, possess a really big brain, and B, have applied said large brain to the craft of writing. They will usually disparage any remotely popular novel as garbage, and instead recommend you read some obscure author you've never heard of, who they claim without any concrete evidence is better than whatever work that they're disparaging. They will bemoan how Western story structures are far too restrictive and don't offer the level of nuance that they need in order to craft their vision, and that in order to bring this to life, they must move beyond the confines of... I don't even know what. I got lost halfway through what they were saying. The intellectual writer may even post weekly videos spewing meaningless theoretical insights into writing on a YouTube channel. Ugh. These writers give the rest of us a bad name. They gatekeep the writing community by making people believe that in order to have something meaningful to say in a piece of writing, you also have to qualify for Mensa membership. Worst of all, I think the intellectual writers take the enjoyment out of the process. They move writing from a pursuit to create something meaningful for the writer creating it and morph it into some kind of brain measuring contest that's meant to impress other people at brunch or whatever. Next up.
Yeah, so this sort of I kind of got ahead of myself, I guess. Yeah, this seems like the literary types. And although you get that in genre too, I've seen so many guys who, well, not so many, but some people who really disparage folks. Not very many people disparage Stephen King, but what's his name? The guy who did the really big name guys who always bring in co-writers and go with them. It's like, oh, that's just schlock. Oh, his writing sucks. It's like, oh, he sucks. He's just blah, blah, blah. Well, it's like, dude, he sold 40 million copies of his books. He can't be that bad. No, go screw yourself. That's that bad. He sucks. I'm like, all right, what you're telling me then is you want the success that he has, but you don't have the chops for it. And you see less of that when they're talking about women. Like, nobody ever says bad stuff like Nora Roberts is like one of the top tier writing skill people ever. But you don't hear a whole lot of people disparaging her per se. They will disparage romance. But she also writes under J.D. Robb. But people who disparage romance have probably never actually bothered to read romance books, because romance writers, by and large, got to be pretty good, because you really got to tap the emotional thing, which you can get away with not doing as much in some... Like, you're doing super hard sci-fi kind of thing where it's all about the technical stuff. You can get away with less of the super deep romance draw, though you still emotional draw, though you still have to have it. Whereas the romance, where it's all about the emotion, you can't get away without being good at that. Anyway, the point is 100%, and I think a lot of the intellectual writers' disposition is mixture of envy and insecurity, obviously.
The I'm just here for the money writer.
That's me. I'm in it for the money, baby.
Preface this by saying that I have zero problem with someone making money through writing in any shape or form that isn't something like fraud, I suppose. In fact, I highly, highly encourage it. There's a stigma around writers monetizing their work, and
I was going to say, hang on a second there, buddy. Let me find your... I hope you're in it for the money, because you're selling a course here for $120 about how to write books, so you better think it's okay to be in it for the money. Anyway, sorry, go ahead.
and this is ultimately harmful to the craft. To produce good writing, you need time and energy in order to produce it. And making money from writing will give you both time and energy to devote to your writing, which is necessary to create good writing in the first place. You do not have a thriving writing community unless you have people who are able to dedicate a large part of their lives to the pursuit of writing, which means they need to support themselves in some way. An author who is passionate about their work deserves every dollar they get from it. All of that being said, I think there are a sizable group of people out there who view writing, especially the self-publishing audiobook space, as this sort of get-rich-quick scheme that will generate passive income. I don't think the people who do this are necessarily harming the craft, because I think their AI-generated, auto-marketed audiobook thing will just disappear into the void of Amazon and people will forget about it within 3 or 4 months. It's more so that they themselves are misguided and they don't recognize that there are so many other easier ways to make money than self-publishing, that if all you want to do is make money, you're playing things on hard mode. If you're passionate about writing and you care about what you're producing and you're willing to put a ton of effort into producing something of decent quality, then it's worth it to put that extra effort in. And if the paycheck is a little lower, then that's fine, because you're expressing your passion and you're doing something that you enjoy. If you lack that passion, however, then you're just banging your head against the wall for no reason. You're working harder than you need to make less money. I think a lot of these people who move in this direction of the passive income, audiobook, AI, whatever nonsense stuff, they'd be just as happy or more happy doing something that wasn't writing related. And they would probably end up making more money because, as I said, writing and publishing are not the easiest way to make money. It's like running is a way to get from point A to point B, but it's a hard way to get there that's slower than a lot of the alternative ways. If you don't care about exercise, or you have no interest in writing, or you don't care about the benefits that running can give you, then just take a car to get from point A to point B. It's easier and you aren't sacrificing something that you care about anyway. If you're passionate about writing and you want to make money from writing, that's great. Go ahead and do that. If you aren't passionate about writing and you just want to make money, your efforts are probably better spent somewhere else. Next up,
All right, so I get the impression this guy hasn't been in this game all that long, because the whole AI-generated audiobook thing is less than a couple years old now. But people were saying the same kind of thing 10 years ago. And again, he's not wrong. I agree completely. There's certainly easier ways to make money. And all you're in it for is the money. And I joke, I'm in it for the money, but I'm also doing it because I dig it. But 5-10 years ago, it was all about writing to market. And we've talked to guys who did that and made some really good money. They were just chasing the trends through Amazon and KDP Select back, which is his own other can of worms that's not going to get into on that one. But some of my writing mentors were like, dude, you could do it, but you could try to do that. Don't do it. You'll burn out. You'll hate it. And then you'll just end up flaming out and you'll never hear from these guys again. And sure enough, several of these guys came back to talk to these mentor guys who I had, who were like, yeah, dude, you were right. I made a bunch of money, but I was writing stuff I hated, and it was it just got to the point where I just couldn't do it anymore, and now I'm done. And it's like, okay, well, yeah, you're right. So Carl here is right. Yeah, certainly there's easier ways to make money. That said, the potential upside from writing, you can point to Rowling, right, and the Harry Potter stuff. That's like the extreme upside, but even the moderate success type upside, if if you're doing it, you like it, you're trying to make money from it, and you're consistent and do your business right, you can make really good money. Some of those right to market guys made really good money really fast and then burned out, like we just said. So it's a mixed bag. But he is right. There's other businesses where you can make money quicker. If you make money quick doing the writing thing, it's mostly because you happen to get lucky and write a really good book when the trends turn the way that you happen to be. But if you don't have the skill, then it doesn't really matter, right? So the skill takes time to learn. So I'm right with them. I'm still a mercenary, though.
I'm immune to criticism or other input from other people writer. These writers' approach to critique is to place their hands over their ears and repeat la 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 loud enough to drown out whoever's reading their work. If you point out an area where they can improve, you haven't pointed out an issue in their work, you've discovered a problem with you. It's you not realizing their greatness. It's you not getting their story. It's you not having the brains to appreciate the masterful job that they've done at writing. These types of writers participate in writing groups, they do swaps for critique, they might even hire an editor. But instead of using those processes as a way to improve themselves and the work, they use them as a means of getting validation for the amazing stuff that's spewing out the business end of their keyboard. Any negativity, any point of possible improvement is resoundingly rejected with an impenetrable mixture of ego, projection, and other psychology stuff that I'm not qualified to actually discuss or even mention. This writer is not interested in getting better, they're just interested in hearing about how good they already are. I think every writer does this to an extent. It's really hard to accept that there are flaws in your writing, and critique can be a brutal thing to go through at times. You put a lot of work into your writing, and it feels good to get validation from it. But a lot of improvement is about recognizing where you need to improve. Part of this process is accepting that you do need to improve, that your skills aren't necessarily where you perhaps think they are. Whenever you go into a situation where you're having other people assess your writing, whether it's a writing group or a swap or anything like that, you need to accept the fact that the reason that those people are there are to tell you what you're doing right, but also to tell you what you're doing wrong. And that the true purpose of these processes is to make you a better writer. But if you're too busy trying to convince yourself that you're already as good as you could be, that you're already at the summit of literary greatness, then you're not going to listen when people tell you that there's a much higher mountain that you need to climb. I think of all the different types of writers on this list, this is the one that everybody does to some extent. And part of the process, I think, of improving your skills are tearing down all of these defense mechanisms that you put up when you receive criticism. It takes a lot of self-awareness to fully accept and fully recognize criticism when it's delivered to you, and to fully accept the flaws that it's acknowledging. This is something that I myself and a lot of you watching this could probably stand to work on. Speaking of things I'm gonna stop working on, I'm gonna stop working on this video because we're at the end of it. So there you have it.
Okay, so I agree and disagree. Depends who's giving the advice, who's giving the critique, right? I've exchanged critiques with people. I haven't really done writing groups, but from talking to people who have, there's a lot of toxicity in there because you got a lot of insecure people doing insecure things, but also if you have a bunch of amateur writers who've never sold anything in a professional market and don't getting advice from each other can be more harmful than helpful, because depending on what you're going for. If you're trying to be a professional, make money off it, and have a career, well, you need to learn what sells, and you need to learn how to sell stuff so you can make money off it. If you're just writing for fun and you just want to do things with your family and what have you, then yeah, I mean, it doesn't really matter, right? But if you want to make money off it, then the place you get your advice and your critique from matters, right? So if you I don't have a ton of professional sales, like 2 or 3, and in the professional anthology markets, and a couple. It's real close. I was a semi-finalist in Writers of the Future, which means in the thousands of entries that one quarter I was in the top 16 of stories, right? So, and I got a critique from David Farland on my story, and I was like, man, that is useful, because David Farland is, was, because he's passed away now, unfortunately, was a multi-best-selling thing. He's been teaching other writers forever. He's had a number of students from who he taught going on to, become huge bestsellers in their own right, making tons of money. People love their stories, by whatever metric. So that guy's feedback was very, very helpful. I've also gone to workshops with other writers who've been in the game for 20, 30 years, and they've read my stuff and given me feedback. That is helpful. I've gone to anthology workshops where we all submit our things to a panel of 6 different editors, and the editors will then sit in front of all of us and tell us go through each story one by one and tell us why they are or are not buying the stories, and they were actually buying for anthologies in that workshop. That sort of advice is very helpful, because it's professional people who are above my level and above the level of most of the people who know the craft better, who can give good feedback, and are actually in the place to pay you for your story, so your story can go out and get out to the world, right? Joe and Jane Schmuckatelli with an MFA who, just so she can teach English class, who has never sold a professional story in her life, but thinks she's awesome, or happens to be in her writing group, and maybe is bitter because she hasn't sold yet, or maybe is not, but just doesn't really know what professional writing is. It's not going to get you much. It's going to end up being personal preference, or maybe they don't like you that much, or whatever. And it's hard to really get any good feedback in that sort of setting that you can be confident is actually going to be helpful, right? And editors kind of weird there too. I've worked with some professional editors, like in the anthologies I've been in, but I've also in my indie life hired editors and stuff. And it's funny because oftentimes I've found that the people that I would get all these editorial advice, I'd do all these changes, and then I'd be like, send it to mom, see what she thinks. And she found like 6 times the number of typos and grammatical errors that these professional people missed. Right? So it's not that advice is bad, it's not that critique is bad, but be mindful of where the critique is coming from. Right? Yesterday we talked a little bit about the Comicsgate and Rippaverse chicanery, which I don't want to go into here, but an interesting anecdote, right? Dick Masterson did a critique of Eric July's first Isom comic book, and Dick Masterson, being Dick Masterson, was irreverent about the way he presented it, but I haven't read his critique, but from his description of it, sounded like he actually was trying to be legit about story structure stuff. I don't know his qualifications for that, but he and I guess Eric responded poorly, and he and Eric were both on a panel together, and they basically started shouting at each other. Eric didn't really handle the critique very well, but I think because of the way that Dick presented it, and this because it was just the internet drama, internet panel kind of thing. But Eric said one thing that was very apropos. He was like, hey, look, I have not seen that you've done anything in the comic space, the space that I'm in. I don't see any accomplishments from you in this space. So why should I listen to what you're saying? And that's whatever else you want to say about how Ripa takes criticism or not, that's actually a legitimate thing. Because if the person doesn't have the expertise or the status, if you will, to give a good feedback for the form that you're doing, you can question how valuable that critique is. Anyway, we'll see what the rest of he's got to say. I think it sounds like he's pretty much done here.
Have it. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I didn't really give any advice, so I don't know how useful this is. But anyway, I'd love to hear what you think of this in the comments down below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.
Okay, so yeah, like I said, I left a couple comments on here. I basically said I was a mercenary, and then I said the thing that I said about in less verbiage, that what the critique is matters, and really doesn't matter if it's not somebody who's going to pay you. And then we had a conversation, and that led to me doing this. But anyway, that's Carl. As you can see, he's much better at YouTube than I am. If you haven't met him, go hang out and subscribe to him. Seems like you could. Oh, geez, I haven't subscribed to him. How did I not do that? Well, I did now. And hey, if you're interested in his course, he's got this one over here. Bring your ideas to life in your first novel. And what he's saying here about his course is true, right? A lot of times, people will start stuff and then they'll get bogged down and they'll finish. Or what happens is people have taken one too many English courses, one too many creative writing courses, and they think everything has to be perfect and go back and rework it 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 and rework it. And next thing you know, they've been working for a year on chapter 1 and never finished the damn thing. Where it's much better to just finish the damn thing and then see if it's any good or not. And if it's not good, then okay, move on, write another thing. Whereas spinning your wheels, doing the same damn thing over and over, is all good. So Carl's offering some advice here. He's finished some novels, and he's willing to help you out. So if you want some help from him too, hey, cool. I've finished some novels too. 138 titles here on Amazon. Woohoo! 10 of them are novels, and a bunch of them. And then I got novellas, short story collections, a few other things. And you, of course, have, I think, seen if you're here, you have appreciated the fact that I have fun stories. But hey, here's another way of looking at my work. This is the book to read page, booktoread.com/ you go to michaelkingswood.com/books to read, the number 2, and it'll get you here, and you can go and see stuff that I've written. And if you click here, let's click on Glimmervale, first book in my Glimmervale Chronicles. Hey, look at that. It'll get you over here, and you can, let's look at, let's look for the ebook. Open up. Oh, get it now. There we go. Hey, look at that. It'll take you to all the stores where you can get the ebook, except for my website. If you want to go straight from my web store so I make more money, michaelkingswood.com/store. Gets you to pretty much all my books there too. I get more profit that way, but really all my stuff's everywhere. So, have a good one. That was fun. Probably I'm probably going to check out more of what Carl has to say, because he seems like a decent dude. And, we'll revisit him later. Okay, but for now, I'm going to sign off. Till next time, make sure you come back on Tuesday. On Tuesday, we are doing through the chapters of that book I just showed, Glimmervale. And this week will be number 21 here on the channel, read by my cool audiobook narrator. And then next Saturday will be Story Saturday, of which you can come and check out. Yesterday was Story Saturday was a police romance thing called Smoke and Embers, and you can get that here. The other place you can find me, if you are interested in, if you don't want to do the audiobook version, I'm over here on Substack, like at kingswood.substack.com. Look at that great picture of me in the sand dunes, and it's great. Anyway, but we post stories here on Substack. Lots of good stuff, things you can read. It's mostly parallel with the channel here, but I'll also do some different things there. You can subscribe here, you can subscribe there, you can buy books, do whatever you want to do. But come back next time, and I'll see you then. Until then, don't do anything I wouldn't do.